Okay, we're now looking at question number 5, which asks me to find f of 0. Okay? Well, let's come up to the graph. This is the graph of f. When it says find f of 0, 0 is input. So 0 is an x value. So it's having me basically start off by looking on the x-axis at 0. Now, what it wants me to find is the output. Well, output is y, which means I either have to look up or I have to look down. Okay? 0 is input, y is output. It wants me to find f of 0, which is output. When I start at 0, if I look down, I don't see any graph. So that's the wrong direction. So let's look up. When I look up, I see a y value of 2. And that's my answer. F of 0 is equal to 2. Okay? When I put in 0, I get out a 2. And let's look at that one more time. When x is 0, I look up, and where do I touch the graph? At y equals 2. Another way to see it is the ordered pair 0, 2 is on the graph. 0 goes in, 2 comes out. Okay, let's practice that again. F of negative 3. Okay, is the next thing they want me to find. F of negative 3. All right, let's look up at the graph. Negative 3 is an x value. So I start on the x-axis at negative 3. If I look up, I don't see the graph. But if I look down, where do I run into the graph? I run into the graph at the level where y is negative 4. Okay? Here's negative 3 for x. F of negative 3. I look up, I don't see it, but if I look down, I run into the graph where y is negative 4. So f of negative 3 is negative 4. Negative 3 goes in, negative 4 comes out as a y value. Is f of negative 6 positive or negative? Well, let's see. If I find negative 6, which is right here, okay, it didn't say find it, it just wants to know whether it's positive or negative. It wants me to find f of negative 6. Negative 6 is an x value. If I look up, I run into the graph. So that means my y value would be up here somewhere. And what kind of number is up here in this quadrant? What kind of y value is in this quadrant? It's a positive number. So for that reason, we know that f of negative 6 would be positive. And again, negative 6 is an x value. I had to look up to run into the graph. Remember, negative 6 is x. F of negative 6 is output, which is y. So you either look up or you look down. In this case, I had to look up to run into the graph. And in this quadrant right here, I am at a positive y value. My final question. For what values of x does f of x equal 4? Okay, remember f of x is really y. So they're telling me y is 4. If I come up to my graph and I find the line y is 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I draw that line, that is a horizontal line. Okay? This horizontal line is y equals 4. Now, what it wants to know is what x values causes that to happen. Well, basic question, what I'm really turning this into is, how many times does this line touch my graph? And I think you're going to see that the answer is twice. It touches my graph here, and it touches my graph here. Okay? Well, let's just read backwards. Let's read straight down. When I read down from those values, I come out with an x value of negative 2, and I come out with an x value of negative 6. So, when I drew the line y is 4, and it wanted to know what x values make that happen, What it was really asking me is the two ordered pairs that this line touched my graph at, it wanted to know what their x values were. One of those x values is, if I read straight down from that ordered pair, one of those x values is -2, and if I read straight down from that ordered pair, that x value is -6. So my answers are x is 2, x is also -6. So this is kind of cool. To do this problem, you draw a horizontal line, figure out where it touches the graph, and then read down or read toward the x-axis to get your answers. And we're done.